Hey guys, so I thought it would be pretty cool to go through the new Darknet collab that came out last month, Broken Toys, and just talk about a little bit of the production that went into it. How the song came to be was Darknet reached out to me looking to do another collab, and I already had this idea. It wasn't fleshed out, it wasn't super planned either. It was kind of just something I threw together one day and it just worked well, so we ran with it. This is the original one. This isn't the finished project. And one of my favorite parts about it is this kind of 140 electronic drum section here in the beginning. Yeah, so I thought I'd just go through that. So one of my favorite parts about it is that this bouncy sub idea actually follows the main riff that comes in then in the chorus. And this isn't obviously the finished version of it, so this is going to sound different than it does on the record because this is a demo, but you can see what I mean. That dun 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 dun. It's the same pattern as is played on the sub. And that started its life here as this pattern, and then I played it on guitar later, and then the boys in Darknet messed with it and made it sound the way it does now, which is super sick. So the sound itself is just, it's like a sine wave FM bass thing. I'm not much of a sound designer, so it's pretty basic. A little bit of decay, just a slight attack. A little bit of the attack comes from this pitch envelope as well, which is giving it that kind of initial boop, 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 boop. If we look at the next oscillator, it's just a sine wave with the fine turned up just by 63 cents. This is just to give it that little bit of movement. If you listen to it with and then without, it's very subtle, but it causes just that little bit of warp, a little bit of movement. Then we've got another sine wave on course 2. Again, not too much of it. And then this is really subtle, but it's just random harmonics that I've put in, but at course 48, so it's really high. Again, with and without. So you can just hear it's adding that little bit on top. It's almost like a bit crushing kind of sound. And then I've spread it a little bit as well, 43%. If we move on to the kick and the clap, they're really boring. They're just samples that I picked out from Splice. We got one from Decap kick and then a Murda snare, classics. And if you listen to them on their own, they're nothing special, because what I wanted was like a nice swing out of this, but that all comes from the shaker and the hi-hats later on. So the kick and clap on their own sound like this. You can get a little bit of that swing out of this kick right here, but not much. It kind of just aids it. I didn't want there to be too many kicks. I wanted the hi-hats to kind of do most of the work. It does have this auxiliary snare as well. So most of the magic and the groove comes from these samples right here, the shaker being the first one. So let's take a look at that without the hi-hats. So where I got this from, this was after a bit of manipulation. You can see what the original one sounded like here. So this was the sample I used. And then by opening that up in Ableton, you can move around these transients and you can put them wherever you want. So I just arranged them the way I needed, and then used this transient gate right here. So transients, this symbol here, and then just turn that down. You can hear that we can kind of gate off just the transients and then get rid of all of that room noise. And then just aligned it where on the grid I needed it, so in these places. And that was probably just trial and error again, but you can see that it's not exactly on the grid for the most part. It does if you go like further and further down. With the hi-hats, again, just trial and error, trying to get them to sit with this. So this one is just playing on the 2s and 4s, so it's pretty basic, except for this part at the end here. And my objective with this was to get hi-hats that sounded like they might be part of the shaker. So it was just a lot of like tonal matching and making sure that it all didn't sound too strange, juxtaposed against each other. So you can hear they kind of have similar tonal qualities, which means that they kind of like sound like it could just be one shaker if you didn't know any better. Same for this next one. From that, I've created this loop. And lastly is this kind of reverse effect that I got off Splice. Pretty just a noisy swell. And then I've chopped it up here to create like a more percussive part of it. And then that's panned left and right. And yeah, the inspiration being, like I said, like 140 electronic music. I was listening to a lot of like Cursa at the time, and Sesco kind of stuff, and that inspired this kind of beat, which luckily became like a pretty cool metalcore tune in the end. If you'd like me to go through more of, you know, my side of the production on this tune, I'm more than happy. Or if you guys want to hear what this original demo sounded like, leave a comment and let me know, and I can make that. If there's any questions, I'm always down to answer everything. I know this wasn't too in depth, but thought I'd just give a little bit of insight into this funky little pattern that I made, that I'm so very fond of. And yeah, cool. Take care of each other.